Hello there, and welcome to The Great Comeback. I am your host, Holly McClain, and I am coming to you live on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, the #1 talk network out there. I'm a life coach and counselor, and I help people come back from big life shifts and upsets. So think breakups, divorce, career changes, teen struggles, all of it. So if it's a life transition that you're going through, together, you and I can master plan your comeback. On today's episode, we are talking with life coach Julie Mast, and we are talking about body love. So essentially loving your own body. And Julie's going to help us sort out all the personal body love stuff today. Embracing your body and loving your body, it can make all the difference, especially if you're going through a big life transition, like the transitions that we talk about here on the show, and the comebacks that we're helping you plan for. Because all the body stuff and the confidence stuff, it just really can be this heavy layer on top. So it was important for me to bring Julie on to talk about this, because I thought, what a beautiful time to begin to embrace who you truly are and love your body as you're moving forward into that next beautiful chapter for you, setting yourself up essentially to feel good and feel confident as you're transitioning. Now, before I bring Julie on and give her a formal introduction, I have to tell you how amazing this woman is. She has been a part of my life for a very, very long time. And I will say, 40 and several years ago, Julie coached me and supported me through one of my biggest life transitions, which was my divorce. And she was literally there for me at ground zero. Like, everything just came crashing down. And I want to say it was maybe a day or two after that I reached out to Julie, because it was actually happened over Mother's Day weekend. And so I went, oh my gosh, like I need some support. And Julie was there, literally like holding this container. And in the coaching world, we call it holding a container or holding space for someone who's in that much crisis, who's, just going through all of this emotional pain. And Julie was just a master. And I remember hanging on to every word that she said, her letting me kind of get everything out, and also her sharing with me and getting me back to center, to a place of hope. So at least while I had those moments on the phone with Julie, back then Zoom wasn't a thing, but we were on the phone. I mean, I had like this tiny glimpse of hope in my life as I'm going through this major crisis. So just want to give you some perspective on like Julie and I, and the connection and the work that she does, and the intuitive way that she connects with you, and how she helps you tap into those whispers of your soul, and all the things that we're going to dive into today. But let me give Julie a formal introduction before I say hello. Julie is a life coach that uses her intuitive gifts to help heal women's relationship with food and with their bodies. She wants every woman to feel total freedom around food so that they can have the energy to focus on living their ultimate lives. Julie lives in Oregon on a Christmas tree and blueberry farm, depending on the season. When she's not busy coaching and writing, she can be found playing in the ocean or in the mountains, or let's be honest, cleaning up after her animals and kids. Julie, my dear friend and fellow Wayfinder coach, welcome to The Great Comeback.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. And when you brought up that time when you went through that transition, it's just amazing how far you've come. And it was I think good for both of us to figure out how to maneuver such a time. So
oh my gosh, it was a wild time. You were there for me. Goodness gracious. So Julie, I want to start by sharing with everyone how you got to doing the sacred work that you're doing. What led you down this path?
I think it was really my own suffering. So when I was in high school, I suffered from disordered eating, I guess, and it actually ended up getting into like an exercise bulimia type situation pretty quickly. So I just remember feeling like I was almost in jail with my feelings about obsessive thoughts about food and exercise. And I swear I lived by the scale. I had a scale, and I was on it probably once or twice a day, and that might be on the low end of things. So I just finally hit rock bottom and realized this is not the life I want. And it really started a journey for me, really a spiritual journey, where I totally released and surrendered and asked basically to be led to, freedom and peace around my relationship with food and diet. And so that was part of it. I just want that freedom for everybody to feel like they're living in their right body without any struggle or bargaining or thinking about calories, and also just really loving your body for the amazing temple it is. And the other, then just real quickly, fast forward, probably almost 10 years, I had another little blip in my relationship with my body. And I was in a really stressful job, and I was training for a marathon. I was drinking fruit smoothies in the morning. And I just looked at my body and I realized, like, this doesn't feel like my body. And I got on the scale and I was like 25 pounds, heavier than I am right now. And I realized that weight oftentimes really has nothing to do with calories in, calories out. I was really unhappy in my life at the time. I didn't like my job. I wanted to be in a relationship, and I wasn't in a meaningful relationship. And then that was my second aha moment. It was such a truth to me that our emotions and how we feel about ourselves really can manifest in weight. And so sometimes we hold on to these emotions, or we have these emotions stuck, and it really manifests in physical weight. So yeah, that's where I started this journey.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Julie, is that, like, when you say, like, my ear perked up when you say that there's more to it than just calories in, calories
Yes.
out. I am so tired of hearing trainers and people say it's calories in, it's calories out. As a woman that's getting older, I know it has a lot to do with hormones as well.
Yes.
There's just so many different pieces to it. And the emotional piece, that's something I'd like to talk a little bit more about, because we look at each other's bodies, or we look at people who are telling us it's all about calories in and calories out, and we're just unhappy, and that whole calorie counting thing is just making us feel worse.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it, like under the surface. It's not just about the numbers or dieting, right?
It's not. And I would venture to say, in my experience, what I feel like is true to me is that calories in, calories out is a very small piece of it, because, emotional eating for women is a really big deal. And so you can exercise all you want, but if you're heading to the refrigerator, every time you feel bored, when you feel less than, when you don't feel good about yourself, when you've had a fight or altercation, and, just, I guess, basic not being content with your life, that causes so much imbalance and just overeating. So kind of, and another thing too, as women especially, we have so much on our plate and we're so busy that we can very easily sort of escape, or what am I trying to think, hide from really feeling your emotions. So I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel like I'm let down. I don't want to feel bored, or I, don't want to feel this grief. And so instead of feeling, we either turn to like alcohol or food. So it's a really big piece of it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because I remember, especially going through the life coaching program, which we went through the same program. I remember them talking about buffers, and I thought, oh, buffers, like, what's buffering me from feeling the things that I don't want to feel, And I'll be honest, Ben and Jerry's ice cream is a big one for me. And so it makes sense. It resonates when you say, we have a feeling, like, I don't even let the feeling come, and it's like, oh, why am I running to the freezer right now? And I used to be a lot worse with this years ago, and I have a pretty high metabolism. So if I'm gaining weight, it's not really showing, and I don't gain weight very easily.
Yeah.
But I remember having like a physical checkup, like yearly checkup or whatever, it's called. And the doctor had said, you are pre-diabetic. And I'm like, what?
Oh,
All the ice cream or the sugar or the candy, like wanting that kind of a feeling to, I guess, keep an emotion at bay, whether it was an unhappy feeling or an emotion that I didn't want to feel. And I think it sneaks up on us and we run to the fridge or freezer.
It does. It does. And it's so much, in alcohol, it's somehow in my practice too, I have people that struggle with alcohol too. It's the same thing. It's this, like you said, buffering. I don't want to feel this. And, one thing came to my mind when you said, why am I doing it? There was a really important tool in Holly and I's training called the why. And it's sort of a hard exercise to take through. Have you done that with your clients a lot?
I have, and
because it's so like that ego has hold on, you don't want to explain why, or you don't want to ask why. So how it works is like, okay, I'm not hungry, but I know I want to sit down and have some ice cream, or we'll use your example, some Ben and Jerry's. And so you have to ask why, what am I feeling? What am I trying to avoid? Why do I want ice cream? And just keep digging down until I usually do 5 whys.
Yeah, it's 5 whys.
And I've those layers off.
Get all the layers. And I've never done it without prefacing and sharing with the client, like, this might be a little annoying, but we're going to dig, because you get to this point where it's like, like we can role play it right now. It's super fascinating. Like, why do I go for the Ben and Jerry's? Because, it tastes good and it makes me happy.
Yeah.
Why?
And then, and why is it bringing you happiness?
See, and then they say when you have a little pause, that's like a good sign. It's like you got them there. Like there's something there.
It's almost
made me feel so happy. Part of it is nostalgic too. Like I'm a little kid and like something's taking care of me right now.
Yes. So why is it important that food is taking care of you?
Ooh. Why is it important that the food is taking care? Because it's something I can count on. Like, I know it's there. It's in my fridge. Like, I put it there. I don't have to like call someone and see if they feel like communicating with me, or rely on somebody and maybe be disappointed that they're not going to be there for me.
It's sort of this unconditional, dependable source of pleasure. And so, that's another thing that you need to look at with eating is pleasure. So if food is bringing you so much pleasure, which it should, I am all for eating whatever you want. And if it's in balance, so where in your life are we missing pleasure? Why are we deriving so much pleasure just from food? In general, people often struggle with that. It's unbalanced how much pleasure they're getting from food, when maybe they should be getting pleasure from a meaningful relationship, or pleasure from, taking guitar lessons, or pleasure from working in their garden and arranging flowers, things like that. That's one thing I have my clients do, is list a list of 10 things that actually bring you pleasure, because it's really important to look at pleasure in your life.
Julie, that's huge, because I never really thought about it that way. I mean, that's the deeper digging stuff that you do. It's like, okay, why am I like running to the fridge, or at least at the tail end of my marriage, when I felt that things were not right and I didn't have any tools to even like approach what was going on, and it was like coming to a close. I remember ordering DoorDash like a couple times a week. We would order it together as a couple. And I remember literally like just hiding behind the pizza. Like I was eating the extra piece of pizza because it's like, something was going on, and I was lacking pleasure and the ability to communicate and like all these things. And I'm just like stuffing more of the pizza and the pasta just because like what else is there to do? I'm uncomfortable.
And also I think in that scenario, tell me where I'm wrong, it's avoiding, like, there's an elephant in the room, but you don't even know its shape or its name, but you feel that it's an energetic elephant in the room where you should be having really honest, cutthroat, probably conversations about your marriage or your relationship, or that we know this is for everyone. And so instead of being super truthful and kind of hitting that head on, which is so difficult. It's so much easier to say that than actually have these hard conversations. But once you have the hard conversation, once you call call out the elephant in the room, that's really where the healing starts. And it's so hard to get over that hump. But then once you do, it so much of it is just the first conversation. But getting back to that, you were avoiding, I think, even, kind of facing where you were in your life. So I think avoidance of sort of the reality of your life is a big trigger for a lot of women.
It's huge. And I think it's important that we dive a little bit more into, when we come back from commercial, what's below the surface, because that's the word, that's the magic that you provide. That's the work that you do with your clients. You're digging into what's below the surface, because we can't just say, well, don't buy the ice cream and don't stock it in your freezer. It doesn't work like that. I've tried. It doesn't work. So yeah, let's dive into like what's below the surface when we get back. So we'll take a commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We've got Julie's information up on the screen, so you can take a look, take a peek, but come back to us. Don't leave us. We'll see you soon. We're back. We're back with Coach Julie Mast, and we're talking about body love. And we basically left off with, it's not a calories in, calories out. There's so much more to it when it comes to our relationship with our bodies. And this is the work that Julie does with her clients. Below the surface, what's going on? And I know that like we've got a lot of stuff going on within our society, and all of the noise that's coming at us. I really want to blame all of this on society's pressures and messages. I mean, how much of that can we? And what else do you find is really going on below the surface?
Well, I think what you're saying is so true. I mean, to be totally honest, I think sometimes women, we're our worst enemies. Like if you look at, I don't know, social media, and you see all this sort of picking apart of women's bodies. And also too, the mere fact, I believe this to be true, is, if a man gets on stage and he's, 50 pounds overweight, I don't think that any of his agency or power is lost. I don't think anyone notices. And then if a woman gets up on the same stage, 50 pounds overweight, instantly, we judge like, oh my gosh, she must be out of control. She's not happy, or she's lazy, or whatever. And so it's really cleaning up our own thoughts about other people and judging other people that really opens that floodgate of loving ourselves and loving our bodies. So I think we're all guilty of it. And I think we all need to remind ourselves as women, so many of these photos of perfect bodies are airbrushed, or they have professional trainers and people literally cooking for them. It's really, loving your body at just the right weight, and actually finding that for yourself too. Like if you've never been a size 2, are you going to live your whole life wishing you were a size 2? It's just, it's sort of like this innate thing that we were born with, is I call it the set point, where it's really hard to get below your natural set point, in my opinion. That's where struggle comes in.
Yeah, and everybody's shape is different.
Like, yes.
I'm more bottom heavy. And I remember growing up before, honestly, truth be told, before J-Lo came onto the scene And it was like, oh my gosh, her curves are adorable. Before that, it was like, oh my gosh, my big butt. All of these
So
things.
you and I are built the same way. So it's like in the height of my eating disorder, when I had low body fat and like an 8-pack stomach, because I don't carry weight in my stomach, my butt was big and round. Not big and round. It wasn't even big, but at the time, exactly what you said before J-Lo, it's like I felt like, oh gosh, I looked at these little flat model butts when I was in high school and thought that's never going to be me.
Yeah.
So it's really, getting to the theme is body love, really loving your body, and also focusing on, if I focused on the size of my booty, like I would never be happy with my body, or like, so I focus on things I do like, I like my arms, or I like my feet actually when they're painted and nice, like focusing on things that are going to really up your energy level, and not focus on what's not working. Because, most of us are not going to have a perfect body. It's just not going to happen unless you really want to sell your time and your soul.
Right. And then it's like, what is perfect? It's just something in your mind, maybe the height and the weight and the width and all of the things. I mean, we're all so unique and different.
We're all so unique. We're all so unique. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's funny, I've noticed lately in the media that big companies are starting to have more representation of different body shapes, which I love. Thank you.
Yes.
Because we need to see that. I was actually looking at a Target ad, women, all different shapes and sizes. It was perfect. You're like, okay, those pants are going to look kind of like that on me versus always seeing them in one particular frame.
Yeah. And you never feel like these pants don't look right on me because, you're not a size 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
I've noticed that a lot too. And it's been so wonderful to see bodies that are, size 12 and 14 that are beautiful and shapely and, modeling. So everyone feels like, they have their part in fashion. You don't have to be a size 0.
Exactly. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk some about that additional layer that you offer with coaching, which is tuning into the whispers of your soul. I mean, I learned that from you, tuning into the whispers of your soul and tapping into your higher self and listening more deeply to what's beyond just sitting in your brain in between your ears.
Yeah. So I think that's where, to me, the magic lies, and where you have sort of like this, it still takes work, but it really is this sort of when you engage your intuition and people's sort of higher self, the healing is much quicker. And I can tap in and sense where there's pain, where there's limiting beliefs, and really try to clear that as much as possible. And really what the word that's coming to me is just truth. Like, it's such a simple word, but I think so much of it all comes down to like finding your truth and telling yourself the truth. And I think with coaching too, and you might agree, it's so much more important when clients really find their own way of healing. Like, we can guide them, but it's them helping them to listen to those whispers as well. That makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting too. A really good coach will guide you and support you, because I remember initially thinking, how in the world am I supposed to pull the answers? Because we've heard this before, and it's been a theme in movies. Everything that you need is inside of you. The answers are there, right? I think it might be The Wizard of Oz or something. I can't remember. But it's like, I don't know. I can't hear a thing. Sure, things are there. I don't know how to tap into them. A great coach really helps you through questioning, pull those things out. And then just to take it back to basics too, when we talk about, tapping into intuition and listening to the whispers, we're talking about like intuition is that gut feeling. We hear that a lot. That's pretty common. Like, oh, I had this gut feeling that I really shouldn't do that.
Yes.
Those are the things that come across so slightly that we think maybe we'll just excuse them. That's where it's at. That's where
that's the breadcrumbs, right? Those are the breadcrumbs you follow, those little whispers. And it sometimes takes a lot of discipline to follow those breadcrumbs, right? And those little actions, because you're like, this is so insignificant or whatever, but it really is sort of finding your way to that, your higher path and your best path.
And absolutely. And also too, getting out of your brain. And through our training, I mean, I remember one of the most important things that I learned from the beginning was it's not all about this. It's not all about your brain. And our society values this thinking machine and education to educate the brain. And yes, we need it, but our bodies at this point are just being used to take our brain from meeting to meeting so that this magical thing can get us to where we need to be. There's a lot that we cannot accomplish and get to through the use of this, and dropping into our feelings is what really helps activate the intuition and the gut, because it's our feeling. I mean, sometimes you can walk into a room and you just get a feel and your brain can't really compute what's going on, but you just like get a feeling, follow that feeling. If it feels a little icky, there's some icky energy in there. Something's going on that your body's tapping into because it carries more wisdom than this thing, even though this is what is so prized in our society. So I love that you do that with your work. You support people in listening to the whispers and tapping into that other additional resource that's often much more valuable, especially when we're trying to figure out relationship with our own body and our own self and all of the things. For sure.
It's so powerful. And I think that's, I feel so lucky that I learned that lesson. So early. I was at our family cabin, and I remember thinking, like, when I was younger, I used to just enjoy swimming across the lake. And now, in the height of my disordered exercise and eating, I was trying to figure out how many calories I was going to burn. And then I just kind of said, I'm done. I just came to this rock bottom, and I flipped my body over, and I just surrendered. It was really the first time, I prayed a lot when I grew up in a home where we prayed and we talked about God and stuff, but it was the first time I really released it to whatever you want to call it, God, spirit. And it was like, this is the way. And that's what I try to help with clients, is like tapping into that wisdom and that truth that makes things so clear so quickly, and healing these wounds. Like with weight, especially if you haven't processed grief, it will literally glom onto your body in the form of weight. So your mind is calories in, calories out, exercise, don't eat this, on the scale. Your heart and your body wisdom is more like finding that balance and finding this peace and wholeness and this trust in yourself to, follow your hunger cues, stop, and also to nourish your body. It's just a totally different way to approach weight loss.
Yeah.
Or not even weight loss, just like we said, body love. That's where it all starts, really. It's not even about getting down to a number. It's about loving your body and just having energy and being in that flow where you feel like it's just balanced in that peace.
Yeah. But I have to imagine too, that for most of us, it starts with, I don't like what I see in the mirror.
Yeah.
That could be like, okay, there's something worth digging into at this point in time. It probably does start with that piece. And then you go deeper below the surface.
Yeah. And I think too is, especially, with your transition clients, they already feel probably at the bottom. They probably hit rock bottom, and then they look at their body, and that's just another layer of emotional weight. And shame is such a big part of it too. And so if they can start sort of finding a different mindset around their bodies, it just releases a lot of that shame and kind of helps with that forward motion of moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's like when we're going through a transition, we're climbing a mountain. And once we get up over the top into the next chapter, we want to be feeling good, which is what I talk about. There are things we want to shed.
Yes.
And there are new ways of being that we want to take with us.
Yes.
And part of loving yourself is exploring things that you want, that you like. I mean, to me, this is a beautiful route to go in tandem with your life transition as you're becoming draw in that element of loving your body and loving yourself.
Yes.
I mean, that would be a cool avenue and area to focus.
Yes.
I would recommend. Absolutely. So Julie, question for you. You mentioned early on about how you have your clients, a tool that you have your clients do or use, which is make a list of 10 things that bring you pleasure, because sometimes we're just dumping in food to take care of a pleasure point that's not being reached. That's a great tool for our listeners to use on their own. Any other tools or tricks or tips that you want to share that they can do on their own to help them tap into loving their body?
Something super simple, and I don't want to go into the explanation, and it's so hard because people grip so tightly to this, but to get rid of your scale, it's hard to do at first, but say I'm not going to weigh myself or get rid of my scale like a week, maybe a month, whatever. That's a huge thing, because the more we're focusing on weight, it's just going to have this shame and, I did this and this and this, I didn't lose any weight, I'm going to go eat ice cream or whatever. It's tied to a lot of emotions and a lot of shame. So I would get rid of the scale and get rid of, dieting in general, of restricting food, or like no carbs, no sugar. Those are two big things that I tell people right away, is to not have these foods that are restricted. It puts a lot of energy around these foods. And so learning to incorporate them and not, overindulge is a really big step.
I love it.
Gosh. And then of course, I think this is so long, this is a whole other chapter, but just really that mindset that we talked about before, of check in with your thoughts about what you're saying about your body. If you're saying, I can't lose weight, my arms are flabby, think about how many times you say negative things about your body, and also realize your mind wants to be right. So if you say, my arms are flabby, I can't lose weight, your mind wants to be right and wants you to be right. And so it's like that mind body connection is really strong. And so really checking in with how you're talking about your body, and think about something that feels really true to you, but isn't negative. So like, my body's on its way to finding balance. My body knows, I trust my body to follow its natural hunger cues. I trust my body to find its ideal weight. Those sound and feel so much better, and it's just going to up your energy level and your vibe. And so it really, really helps. The mindset's huge. We could talk a whole other thing about my actual mindset.
I know that's a whole other topic, but I love that you touched upon it, because it just brings awareness to the idea that we're saying things to ourselves.
I know. I think we're our worst enemies. I think I would never talk, some of the stuff that I say, it's like, I would never say that to my worst enemy. So really, it's loving yourself starts with how you're talking to yourself. So I think that would be a huge takeaway for your listeners, is really pay attention to how you're talking to yourself and how you're talking about your sweet, precious body. Like it's shocking sometimes the stuff we say to ourselves. So
I know, what a beautiful message. We will end on that note, Julie. Thank you so much.
So
will
fun.
You share how our listeners can get in touch with you?
Yeah. So on my website there, and in email, and then I usually do a complimentary call like that for like 30 minutes up to an hour to make sure we're a good fit, because in my practice, I do a lot of, meditations, and, that might not be for everyone, but I incorporate a lot of spiritual sort of principles into my practice. And so, love to talk to people, see if I can help.
Yay. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Julie, for being on the
So good to see you.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us in the conversation today. If you would like one-on-one coaching support as you navigate your personal comeback, reach out to me. Visit hollymcclaincoaching.com. And one final thank you to Cece, my amazing producer who works her magic on the back end to make this show possible. Join me again next time. Have a great rest of your week and be well.
Bye-bye.